you can't work harder for your person than they're willing to work for themselves.
Exactly.
And even healthy people that don't have a mental health condition have obstacles.
Yeah.
That is life. And so removing all of the obstacles is not teaching them how to approach an obstacle.
So I want to talk about what the steps are that somebody should take if they are in a caregiving situation or a, support person situation with somebody who is struggling with mental health issues. Where do they start in starting to reevaluate, their capacity, the relationship, the dynamics in the relationship so that they can get into a healthier position? Because one of the things that I have seen, oftentimes people come to me who are the caregivers and they're seeing their person in crisis. They're seeing the person struggling and they, what do I do? How do I help them? And it's really hard for me to tell them this, but until they want help, there's nothing you can do.
Right.
Until they're ready to take care of themselves, until they're ready to help, to get the help that they need, to do the work that they need to heal, there is not going to be a whole lot that you can do. You can learn. I encourage, I have caregivers and support people on this, who listen to this podcast because they're trying to learn so that when their person hits rock bottom, when their person gets to a point where they're so miserable that they're willing to do the work to heal and recover, that they'll be there for them and they'll know what to do to help them through that process. But it's really important to break the cycle of enabling, really is what's happening. A lot of times you're enabling at your own expense. So where do you tell people to start? How does somebody get started on working through that process? What are the things that you would tell somebody?
So the first thing I would say is, first of all, congratulations for even thinking about it, because you made the first step like that, to even be aware that like, okay, this is not working. I need to figure something out. That's the first step. You're already opening the door to self-awareness, which is going to be pivotal in all of this. So what I typically do when I'm working with someone is we just have a conversation and I'm like, okay, let's look at your capacity right now to do more for your person. Okay. And this can be, in my context now, it's more about working with somebody who has a physical disability, but, or aging. But I have also used this in my own relationships with people who are struggling with addiction or have mental health, issues. So this is something I've used in my actual life that I have done. So it's like, okay, so what are you already doing? What are you doing right now? Like, what are the things that you're doing to care for this person? And maybe it's helpful to even break it down, because I think a lot of times when we write down all of the ways that we are, like, and I'm not a video game player, so I don't even know why this is coming up in my head, but like, I'm imagining like my son's video game right now, like running in front of the person, moving out all the obstacles so they can get through. Like, what are you doing during the day to avoid any obstacle for your loved one, lest the poop hit the fan, right? Yeah. Like, you don't want them to run it because it's not like the chaos will ensue. And so you want to fix all that first, right? So you're jumping through all these hoops to clear a path for your person. What are those things that you're doing? And then why are you doing them? Is that assessment correct? Like, are you like, yeah, I'm just doing it because I don't want to deal with the headache of, them not doing it, not wanting to do it, doing it poorly, whatever the case may be, right? And so that would be the first thing. I'd be like, list what you're doing and then really assess, like, are these things that you're doing because you're afraid to not do them? Or are they somehow helpful to you? And what happens if you don't do them? And then that's where we walk down the fear ladder, right?
Yeah.
If I don't make sure that this is done properly, then X is going to happen. Well, so what? So what if X happens? Then what? And make sure and come up with like a then what? Because the next thing you're going to ask yourself is like, okay, and then what? And then so what? And you're going to walk through all that kind of stuff. And chances are what you're going to see, and it's something you've kind of already alluded to, is like you can actually see the enabling once you lay it all out like that. You're like, wait, why am I doing this? Why does it really matter? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you can go back to, and you've mentioned this before, but this is also something that like my therapist said to me when I was in recovery from my eating disorder, and I've used often, is you can't work harder for your person than they're willing to work for themselves.
Exactly.
And even healthy people that don't have a mental health condition have obstacles.
Yeah.
That is life. And so removing all of the obstacles is not teaching them how to approach an obstacle. It's problem solving. It's a problem solving skill.
Yeah.
And so we are, once we see what we're doing and really analyzing why we're doing it, then we can start kind of peeling away one thing at a time. And then that's where your boundary is going to come in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, I'm not going to make sure that the milk handle is situated this exact, or whatever,
Yeah.
I don't know. That is where the boundary is going to come in. You're going to see some place where, and you may not be able to see enabling and everything, like maybe some things just make sense for you to do because you're, whatever. But then when you see that, like, okay, there's this one thing here that like I can probably not do, and just see what happens.
Yeah.
And then the second piece, and this is where my clients that work like, consistently with me, that, I do like one-on-one sessions and group sessions. But like when we work consistently, it's going to be like, okay, now how are you going to handle when you're not doing that thing and the so what happens?
Yeah.
And that's where we get into mindfulness, breathing, breath work, reframing, things like that. So, but just to set it, to get started, it's like, honestly, I think a lot of times we're doing so much we don't even know what we're doing. Like make a list.
Yeah.
Number one. Yeah. And then also just asking like, and chances are like, I've never asked somebody if they're at capacity, like where their capacity is, below, at, or above, and they haven't said above.
Yeah.
All of my clients, they're always above. So part of like, that's another question like you can ask, but part of it, like you can even skip that one and go straight to just, you already know you're doing too much, list it all out. What is it? What are you doing?
Yeah. Well,